You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 37. I have a special guest today, the lovely Metesha, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself and to tell everyone what you do and who you are.
Thank you very much for having me. Like you said, my name is Metasha, and I am a parent and baby balance practitioner and a motherhood mentor. So, which means I'm quite passionate about supporting mummies and babies, especially in the early days. My passion came about mainly, it just happened. I'm a mom of 7 children. So, as you can imagine, I've spent a lot of my time focusing on mum and baby wellness, and it sort of life kind of guided me in that direction. I'm originally from South Africa. I studied pharmacy at uni, and my husband and I moved over to the UK when my eldest was a year old. So we were very early 20s when we had our first child. So yeah, we came over for being young, the experience moving to a first world country. He's from Zimbabwe, so both of us were out. But as you can imagine, raising a family, trying to get post-grad jobs, so it was quite overwhelming. So the past, my eldest will be is 19, so she's 20 in 2024. So lots of growth. Parenting without family support was not something that I envisioned. Growing up, I grew up in a very close-knit family, and I had this different vision. I was going to be a pharmacist, live around my parents, but then life took me in a completely different direction. And I have one brother, so having large families is new to my family. So when I had 7 babies who came my way, it was just new to everybody. But I saw that change. A lot of change had to happen in myself because I started off having this pharmacy career that I was chasing, and then my priorities changed. And I did try to juggle. I worked for the NHS for quite a number of years, but as more babies came along, I knew that that's not where I wanted to be. And I started looking at places, at ways of earning money around my babies. And I looked online and I came across baby massage. And funnily enough, it was something that's done traditionally in my family. So I'd seen it being done to my cousins by my nanny who passed away just a couple of weeks ago, bless her. So so she was quite a strong woman figure in our family, and she was the one who would massage all the babies. And being young and naive, I thought it was just a old-fashioned tradition. But coming into England and researching it and looked at the science behind it, now with my pharmacy background, I could see it from a scientist point of view, that all the benefits that this ancient tradition, which has been doing by women for hundreds of years, had so much benefit with premature babies and the development in babies. And I was just blown away by this ancient tradition, which I took for granted, and how much benefit it has. And the more I looked into it, and I'm not sure if you know that the first 1001 days of a person's life, it sets up the type of people they become. So 80% of our brain development happens then. And so the environment and the experiences that a baby feels in that crucial time from conception to the age of about 2 sets their mindset and their mental well-being as toddlers, as teenagers, as adults. So I'm quite passionate about encouraging mummies to bond with their babies and to ensure that that crucial time is important, and they spend time with massage, with yoga, just one-to-one connecting with babies. But sadly, in the world, there are also lots and lots of babies who are not given that chance. And through no fault of their own, they're just set up by their environment and their experiences to go down a not so positive path, which is so by holding space for mummies and trying to encourage more and more women to value that crucial time in the postpartum time. So yeah, so that's where I
Yeah,
began. So I've been doing it for 3 years
amazing.
as a baby massage yoga teacher. And so during that time, I noticed that there was so when babies, so there's pregnancy preparation. So when you're pregnant, you get all the antenatal care and you know what to expect during birth, child, like, you know, all that. And then when baby comes along, you have all these cool classes and all that happen. But there's that period once baby happens when nobody tends to give mums much attention. So once baby's here, it's all about baby and not as much as supporting the mother. And I
Mm,
think that's where we're failing a little bit, because culturally, in a lot of traditions, there's lots of emphasis on caring for women in that what we call 6 week or that 40-day postpartum period. And like Chinese, African, Indian cultures, women are cared for, they're nurtured, they've given their time to heal and to recover. And
mm,
that sets them up with the confidence to know to mother their baby.
yeah,
So yeah, I feel that in the UK we're kind of lacking that a little bit. So
yeah, I
once
agree.
I've had two of my babies in the UK hospital, and once the baby comes, you just give it a piece of toast, and then you moved on, and then that's it. And then you're on your own for pretty much there, which is a little bit sad. So yes, I trained as a life coach now. So I'm hoping in 2024 to bring about a motherhood mentoring program to support women in that fourth trimester or that crucial 6 week where they, once their partner goes back to work and you're on your own. A lot of mummies nowadays are professional women who have to leave behind their careers to now be at home. I knew it feels like a bit odd because you're so used to having your own money and your own independence, and now you're reliant on maybe a partner or and then caring for this person. So lots goes on once you become a mum, and I think it's important to understand and to educate people about it, so that often we just class as, oh, she's moody, she's just had a baby, it's hormonal or whatever. But there's lots going on, and it's not nice to just be labeled.
Yeah, for
If you get what
sure.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for sharing all of that. Really, really interesting. And I've got loads of questions on that whole process, especially your journey as well, because obviously that's a massive part of, yeah, I mean, why you're doing the work you do now. And I think 7 children, wow, that's incredible. Like, wow, you are Mother Nature herself, I'm sure. But it's so interesting and picks up on really important parts there about how mothers aren't really given enough support. And again, there's that always that debate, isn't it, is should a mum stay off work or should they go back to work, and they're penalized either way. So it's really important the work you're doing because yeah, it's needed. And everything you said about the connection with the baby and the massaging. And it's quite funny because my grandma used to do something like that too. And it was only when you said it I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that. Like, and she had a little song that she used to do with when she was doing it. And it's so funny because yeah, I remember her because my sister's a year younger than me, so I remember her doing it for her and then the other babies that we had in the family. So it's just interesting, isn't it, that these traditions that we kind of ethnically that have been in our family for years, we don't even realize are a thing, and then actually in the Western world, it's like, no, this is a real thing that's important that we need. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. But you said something really important there about you had 2 children in the UK. Where did you have your other children, and what was the difference in terms of
My
like the
eldest I had in South Africa. So,
okay.
yeah, so she was completely different because then there isn't an NHS. So we had, because my husband and I were very just in final years of uni, so we were like very young, very early 20s
Mm,
we were. So money was obviously there. So we had her in a government hospital. So that was back then, like almost 20 years ago. There was no Google. I couldn't just um, search
mm,
whatever happened. So it was just all about of just learning. And I went to uni away from my parents, and my mother wasn't with me. So to start with, just my husband and I, we did it together. And yeah, so that was just a different having a baby in Africa. But then the others, I had two in UK hospitals, and then the others I had home births because by
Ah,
that time, by baby number three, I realized, I mean, I had grown more and there was more information, I had more education, and just knew how to trust my body.
mm,
And I realized that being at home, and also because we didn't have childcare, it was just easier for me to have my other babies with around me, so I could be in a relaxed stage to
yeah.
birth the baby. So it was all a bit of coincidence. And yeah, my youngest is 19 months. So yeah, so she was born last year at home
Wow.
on the sofa.
Wow.
So
You really are Mother
yeah.
Nature. I can't get over that. That's incredible. And I think that's every woman's dream to an extent, isn't it? To have a home birth and to do it that way and like so
Yeah.
like lovely with your other children present. Like I'm sure that was a really beautiful experience. And what was your family dynamic like as a result of obviously having such a large family?
Oh, it's chaos, as you can imagine. There's so much going on, and I'm so grateful to have all seven of them, and they just each of them are in very interesting phases. So my eldest, so she's second year uni, so we've got that young adult phase. It's me learning to let go a little bit, to
Mm,
trust that I've done what I can, now it's up to her. But then that motherly instinct is always there to like tell her how to do things, but I have to stop myself and listen to her. She always makes me aware that this is her chance now, so it's always
mm,
important to listen to the children. And sometimes we do clash because that's how life is with she's exercising her independence. But yeah, so we're growing quite nicely there. My son, he turned 16, so yeah, so having a young man, and he's done his GCSE year, so it's just quite lovely having, to see their futures bright. It's quite a
mm.
nice feeling to see all the opportunities there for them, and to encourage them to that, to be grateful, count their blessings. And with what's going on in the world now, we're just quite lucky to be safe, to be with each other,
Yeah, for
so we just
sure.
have to make the most of what we have. And that's all I can do, is just to support them, and trying to get them to have that mindset of being positive, of trusting that everything
Mm,
happens in the reason, because life will not always go smoothly. So I started off
absolutely.
thinking I was going to be a pharmacist in South Africa and all those things. And I'm not doing any of the things that I set out to be. So someone had told me when I was 18, I was like, oh no, I need to go to uni, I need to do this, I need to do that. No, I wouldn't have dreamed I would be mom of seven, and that would be my priority. So, but again, often people who I grew up would say, oh, I went to uni, I should have. They don't value being a mom as much. It's not as
Mm,
accomplished as if I said I had got, I became this director of pharmacy. So it didn't sound. So it's just society sometimes doesn't give you
yeah, I
much
agree.
validation. But then it's up to you to, this is where I am, this is what I was given,
Yeah,
and yeah, and
absolutely.
make it work for me. So
100%. And
that's
and you know what? I'll be completely transparent. Before my sister had her children, I didn't see the worth in that motherhood either. Like when people used to put full-time mummy as their job description on social media, I'd think, really? Come on. And then when my sister gave birth to her first child, I was like, yep, own it all. Like you being a mum is literally so consuming. Like I take my hat off to every single mother, whether it's one child or seven. I still think it's a real big responsibility and it does require a certain type of skills that you do need to develop. And I think
yes,
that's where we kind of find probably where the intersect of both of our work is in terms of um obviously my work's trauma related and all of the mindset work. And I think well, when we become a parent especially, I think that there's a certain level of skills you have to develop obviously to be a great parent or to be just a parent full stop. And some
yeah,
people don't always develop that, and or it's not natural, and then that's where
yeah,
the parent can't give as much as what the child needs, which then results in creating trauma patterns and cycles that last for a lifetime. And you mentioned that within the
yeah,
first 2 years about that touch, isn't it, that connection to others
yeah.
that unfortunately some children don't get, and that actually is really detrimental. So I think
Mhm.
so much of this is intersected, especially with
that thing about motherhood and mothers being cared for. I think that's such a big part that we miss. Like you said, everyone worries about the baby, is the baby being fed, but it's not like, is mum actually being nurtured? Is she getting enough sleep? Is she getting enough rest? Is her body feeling good
Yeah,
to her? It's a
yeah,
massive thing. So I think it's great that you're doing this work because it's so needed. And with your pharmaceutical background, which is just incredible. And I think that's really the part where that's what people need, is that understanding that you have this knowledge within this. And I think that's always going to be a real asset to you, is the fact that you are so educated in this, because not only have you got the life experience, but you've got the education to back it up, which I think makes it so much more impactful. And obviously we know what you're doing is so necessary and needed. And I really believe that we are in a timeline where people are starting to take well-being into consideration, and I do think that the next few years we'll start to see that really flourish for so many people, especially women. So I think that
yeah,
you're right now in the best place you can possibly be, because you're utilizing your gifts, right? This is your purpose for sure, right?
yeah. Yeah, when I teach my classes, it's very important to me to explain to the mummies why we're doing certain things. It's not just why we're going to rub some oil on baby's tummy. It's important for me to explain how it aids in digestion, how it helps break down the air bubbles. Because as a person, when I understand how something, the reason
Mm.
behind something, then it makes me want to do it more. So yes, that's, like you said, that's important to me to explain it to everybody, the reason behind each step that I do.
Yeah.
So
With
yeah, and I'm hoping. So I'm very very early days in the motherhood coaching, so it's still to take off. But I'm hoping,
mm,
I'm just yeah, it's just lots of, with the holidays, lots of admin and stuff to get through. But I'm hoping to let that grow in 2024 and
yeah,
reach
definitely.
mummies not just in the UK but worldwide. Just
Yeah,
that,
so
yeah, that's
needed.
my
So
mission and goal.
before we kind of talk more on what you do now, I'd like to go back a little bit and talk about kind of your journey into kind of now understanding that this work is necessary. So I guess, within you not being able to pursue your career as a pharmacist and having the children, what was kind of that deciding moment where you kind of, the podcast was called Permission to Shine. What do you feel like was your moment in that, where you kind of feel like you gave yourself that permission to own everything you are and like be like, okay, this is me now. I'm going to use this as a way forward.
I I think it was after baby number three that I began to realize that I couldn't be both places. I couldn't give 100% to my pharmacy work, and I was always torn. So I felt
Mm,
that that was, something had to give. And then when I got baby number four came along, and she was my first home birth, and that was when I realized that this wasn't going to. It was just not working. I was not aligned with my pharmacy work as well, and I just couldn't give
mm,
100% both ways. And as you can imagine, childcare costs in the UK is massive. So where I had to make the decision, do I go in and put my babies into childcare and just come out with very little? So that's when the decision was made between my husband and I that it would be, we would take some time out. I would still do a bit of locum work of the weekends and around if needed to be. But then as I could see that me being at home, one parent doesn't necessarily the mother, having a parent that's home, that's there to pick up, that was there to attend the school thing, was there to read to them every night, not being tied. I could see my children flourish. I could see the
that's
importance.
lovely.
So while it meant me giving up a part of me, I had to embrace that this was new part of me, and I
Mm,
could see the benefits in that. And I admit, it took a lot of work, a lot of studying, a lot of me changing countries to get to be working for the NHS. So in a way, that's a little bit. It took me a while to accept that and to, like, release that. I still have my registration, so it's always an opportunity to go back.
mm,
But to let go of all that type of person that I was
yeah.
is just part of my journey. And it served me for then, but now it's just helped me to be where I am. But it's just about
Yeah.
letting go. And I must say, once I really realized that, it was easier, because I was becoming frustrated, I was becoming overwhelmed, I wasn't particularly very nice, because I was just trying to do it all. And we like to think we can, but
Mm.
sometimes you just have to, accept that that was just, that time had passed, and I had to do what my now was. And then as I got into it, and I found myself into this new path, which if I insisted on, right, I studied for this, my parents paid for this degree, I needed to go ahead, I would have closed myself up for this new journey that was
Yeah, for
there for
sure.
me. So
And clearly so
yeah.
natural to you in terms of like, obviously mothering is something you must be very good at because, you're there, you're obviously blossoming, with all of the things that you're doing. So I think it's yeah, wonderful. And it's hard, isn't it? Because I don't think we ever see the end where we are. So like when you're standing in that position, say a few years ago or however long it was, you don't really get to see the final product yet. So you have to make a decision, don't you? And think, right, what is going to be best
Yeah.
for me right now? What's going to be best for my children? And I think, like you said, being able to see the children benefit from you being at home, I'm sure that outweighs any accolade or, work fulfillment. But equally, now you can make your career into what it is you're already doing. I think that's a win, isn't it? Completely. But I'd say, another question I always ask is like, what obstacles have you continuously faced through this journey? Because that is obviously something, like I talk about patterns and cycles. Like, what would you say has been one that you've faced? Because a lot of listeners will obviously benefit from understanding that as well.
Well, coming from being a professional mom to now being a stay-at-home mom and losing financial independence
Mm,
was a huge, huge adjustment. So that was a huge obstacle. And being, although, like, if I stayed in my career, I could have been better financially, but now losing that, I struggled for a while and continued to do so because I had to make, things could be better if both of us were working. But again, it's just money, and I just need
mm,
to get, yeah. But it's, as a woman, it's also important to have some sort of independence, and I encourage my daughters to. While it's good to be a mom and it's good to do all those things, it's important to be able to take care for myself and provide. Well, fortunately, I have my husband, but anything can happen with, and I need to be able. So that is why being on top of my skills. So with retraining with this, I always was important to me to be educate myself to have the skills, so I could be able to provide for the children if I needed to. I didn't want to be just stay at home mom and just dependent all the time. So I think it's very important. So while motherhood is amazing, and it's also equally important as for young girls to be able to have that skill. Doesn't necessarily, I mean, everybody's different, doesn't necessarily have to be a university degree, it could be whatever, but you should have some skills to fall behind if you have to take care of yourself.
mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And I guess obviously being a mum to seven must be exhausting at times. So I guess my question to you is like, what's your self-care look like?
Well, to start off with, to be very honest, at the beginning, I thought it was to be a good mom, I had to do everything for everybody. So I had to be a good, to see to my partner, to be there for the kids, and for a long time, for a very long time, that's what I did, and I was just giving and giving and giving, and then it is only when the change happened. I don't know exactly when it happened, but there was just a shift, and I realized that my babies needed me, and if I was going this way, just giving and not nourishing myself, that was not going to benefit them. So that is when, I think maybe it was after baby number 5, that I thought, that it is important for me, because I was getting older. And when you in your 20s, you think, okay, you're invincible, but as you're getting older, you think, okay, I needed to take care of myself. So now, after some time, and making that mistake of giving, I to prioritize myself, and that's when the changes happen, and that's where I could see my business growing. So once I made, not I'm not saying neglecting my children, but making sure that I was taken care of as well. And you could see that once I had that mindset, it showed in them as well. So I was calmer. So simple things like making sure you did your hair, or having a bath, or going for a walk. It wouldn't have to be drastic things like going away
Mm.
for the weekend, because I'm still breastfeeding. I've been breastfeeding and pregnant for the last 2 decades. So having that, to never really have time for myself away from them, but just making do within myself. Journaling, I found journaling really, really
Yeah.
helpful.
Oh, good.
And yes, it's just a lot of self-growth, and I think that just came with age and with just making that decision that I wanted more and I needed to take care of myself so that I could be the best version of me for them. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, just
Oh, I'm really glad
it's
that, because that was something I was concerned about for you, is that there's so much giving, isn't there, all the time, like in motherhood. And I guess it's something that you don't necessarily receive in return in the same way. I mean, obviously you do because of love, and you get to see them flourish and
yeah,
grow, but it's a very different journey, motherhood, isn't it, to any
yeah,
other type of people pleasing scenario. It's like, this is it. It's like all
yes,
the love you have is ultimately like watering the seed that you've created. So yeah, it's so important, I think, for mums to really find that time for themselves, even if it means getting a babysitter for one day, but even if it's one day a month, and it just means you have a day off to just do like whatever you
true.
want, right?
Yeah.
Even if it means time
So
with your
yeah, it's
partner.
challenging. I won't lie. It's not always like it's easier said than done. So, but it's just being aware that it's needed and to make that time. But as the
Yeah.
kids get older, I think when your kids are quite little, then they're dependent. But then the seasons change, the needs change.
Yeah.
So at the stage where we're at now, so my older ones are able to take care of the younger ones. Like the last
Yeah.
time when we were meant to have, I was on my own, and the younger one, so it just yeah, so they kind of all blends together, and that's what I try to tell each mom, is that it doesn't last forever. When you're having those sleepless nights and when you're struggling with the tantrums, it's not forever. And to be yeah, to love, in a way, you have to love the not so nice parts as well, to
Mm.
just let go and accept that that's part of mothering, that it's not all
Yeah.
going to be perfect. And that's something, once you get that, no, not to hold any expectation. Often when babies come into our lives, we expect them to sleep for X amount of times, do what we want them to do. But we're mammals. At the end of the
Mm.
day, they'll do what they want to do. And once you release that expectation and chill out, that, you know what, they will sleep when they want to. And if it means co-sleeping works for you, well done. If it means having a crib works for you, then you just have to just go with the
Yeah.
flow and figure out what works for you, and just let go of
Absolutely.
expectation. That's the thing.
Yeah. And it's so hard
Hmm.
for mums as well, because there's so much noise, about what the right thing to do is, or what your friend does, or whatever. And I actually, I'm not a mum myself yet, but just even in my own discernment, I can see that you have to just go with what feels right to you. And if it doesn't
Yeah,
work for the baby, you try something different. It's like,
yeah,
like the patterns for life, in your own growth are exactly the same in motherhood. Like, if it works for you,
yeah.
great, keep doing it. If it doesn't, change it. It's the same with children, isn't it, really? And obviously there's every level, they need more or less of something, but trial and error has been the best teacher throughout history, right? And I think it's the same
Yeah,
with parenting. And like you said, the sleeping patterns, like, I see so many of my friends that are just devastated that their children aren't sleeping and their friends' children are. And I'm like, they're not the same baby. They're not the same baby. They're going to do whatever they want. And you might find
yeah,
that your child doesn't sleep through the night, but actually they potty train in a week. Do you know what I mean? You just,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
can't really compare it, can you? And it's hard because we're in
yeah,
such a society that makes us do that. It becomes so
yeah.
frustrating and difficult, and it's hard. Like,
Yes.
I take my hat off, like I said, to any parent, especially mums, because it's a lot. And I think, a lot of the
Mhm,
time you don't always know when you're going to have a baby, and it becomes like a shock, and
mhm.
it's so much you have to
Yeah,
get used to and adjust to. But even when you're prepared, you'll still be met with the same challenges, right? There's never a
yeah,
quick way or a
yeah.
fix to any of it. But on that, I guess, what would be like your top 3 tips for, maybe new parents, new mums? What would be the top 3 things that you would recommend for them to do or look out for in order to, yeah, I guess, be the best parent they can be, or most fulfilled? I mean, you might be able to put that in better words yourself.
Top, tip number one is that you are the expert of your baby. So don't compare to anybody else, to what Google says, to what anything says. You are the expert to your baby. And that in the early days, tip number two is that you need to spend time bonding with our babies. So I've been just did I'm doing a post at the minute about why, we're the information age and everything, we have Google at our fingertips. But I've noticed more and more new parents are becoming reliant on parenting apps. So where it is like monitoring that they have a place. I mean, sometimes, especially if your baby is premature, it's nice to track your baby. But we're becoming, as a digital society, we're becoming so attached to parenting apps, which I can see is, we're going down from the pair moms that I work with. So often new moms have their phones with them, breastfeeding or bottle feeding, and just tracking how many minutes the baby's. And so please do not be mindful when using your screen. Be mindful, and don't let that replace your natural instinct, because we're never going to get confident in our parenting skills. Everybody doesn't know what they're doing. We're all learning. So if we are going to be reliant on a parenting app, which is replacing, that listening to your baby, I feel that we're going down a very, very dangerous path, that we're going to lose that connection, which is essential. So be mindful that you're not reliant on parenting apps. Trust your instincts for that. So tip number 2. And tip number 3 is that you should prioritize yourself, whether it's self-love, self-care. It's so, so important. Don't have the expectation, even if from your baby's dads. Don't assume that they can understand what you're going to, prioritize yourself. I find that, we always want somebody to come in and take care of us, rescue us. But the age that we are in now, back in the day, it says it takes a village, and that was amazing, because babies were raised by lots of people, and it was really lovely, because that child, when they were taken care of by the fisherman, or the lady who was collecting the fruit, they gained all those skills to become a stronger part of that village, and that was amazing. But now we are parenting on our own, and children are being brought up by just their parents, their inner circle, which is not ideal, because parents are becoming overwhelmed. Children are not being exposed to skills of different people. So we're just growing by what our parents tell us. So, so prioritize yourself, and just go with the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many important things that you said then, and I'm really glad that those are the top tips, because I think that's so it, isn't it? Like, comparison is the thief of joy, 100% in any scenario, let alone parenting, as we were saying. And I think, yeah, that's just so important. And prioritizing yourself is just it has to be there. And I think we throw the word selfish around so much, but it is that thing that I come back to all the time. It's like, you can't give from an empty cup. And being a mum, like we said, you're pouring out everything you have, literally, from your body as well, let alone anything else emotionally. So I think also on that, I think as women, we're notorious people pleasers, and we want to have it all figured out. And I think we want to look like we can do it all on our own, because it makes us look like a competent mum and all of those things, and I'm obviously speaking from a parent perspective, not being a parent. So I do take that into consideration, but obviously being around children so much, it's my interpretation from it. What I would say is ask for what you need as well, like, if you need more help, like, it's okay. If you need someone to come round, like, I've had my friends come round to just I had my friends ask me to come round so they can have a bath. They're like, can you just come round and watch the baby so I can have a bath? Yes, that's absolutely okay. Like, ask your best friends, like, ask your siblings. Like, people do want to help, they often don't know how to, and I'm talking from a person that hasn't got children myself. Like, if someone needs me to support in that way, if I can do it, I definitely will. And I think another thing is obviously expectation, isn't it? Like you mentioned, the expectation of, like, the other parent, or maybe your family to be there. Like, maybe again, it's coming down to ask for what you need, because I think, or as humans, we're rubbish at that, aren't we? We just expect people to read our minds, and then so I think really, really important things on there. And I think it sounds great, but I'd love to know what it is you're offering now, what your packages are, like, what is it that you've got going on in your world for anyone listening?
Well, so some very exciting changes has happened. So my Heart of Mothering is my parent and baby wellness business. So that's what I started with, and that focuses on massage and yoga, and mum well-being. So creating a safe space for mummies to come together, meet other mummies, and just to be honest about early motherhood. So in the last couple of weeks, I have been given the opportunity to have my very own studio, which has always been a dream of mine. So I've been doing my classes out of village halls. So it's it's very, very exciting. So I've signed the lease yesterday. So starting January 2024, I will be in my own space in Bicester in Sheep Street, which is quite
Congratulations.
central Bicester. And yeah, I'll be able to offer more classes, which is lovely. And because I won't be restricted to hall hires, etc. So that's very exciting. So for those who are in Bicester or Oxfordshire who would like to come to my classes, that's where you'll find me. And yeah, I'll give you my website details later. So that is, and I do offer also one-to-one online sessions for those who are not. But I'm sure in the UK we're quite lucky. We've got a lot of baby massage teachers around. So if you just look along your local one, it's quite a nice. It's baby massage and baby yoga. It's such a simple, very very simple, because it just needs you and your baby and some oil, and it's such an important parenting skill, I would say, for everybody to learn, because it supports you, that bonding, that release of oxytocin between you and your baby. It's just so simple. It's so beautiful. It's such a simple thing, and it helps with all sorts of ailments. So it's something that I'd recommend, whether you do it an online course or if you're new mum, please do go find your local baby massage and yoga teacher and try one of those classes. And then, like I said, my other project that I'm working on is the motherhood mentoring. So I feel that there's the need to support women in that fourth trimester, especially the 6-week postpartum. It's just whereas, like we said before, we were taken care of, there was a nurturing support from the women in the community. So I'd like to bring that back and introduce that to women in the world. So that's the mentoring program that I'll be introducing in 2024. So I'm trying to find a way to make it to suit everybody, because I don't want it only to be a high ticket product for only certain type of mummies who can afford it. So I'm trying to find that balance. As I said, losing financial freedom when I gave up work did impact me. So I want to be available to everybody. So the packages that I offer will be for those who are just for different budgets. So yes, so that's all almost there. So maybe in the early next week, I'll be releasing that on social media and
Oh,
my website. So
exciting.
fingers crossed. Yeah.
Amazing. It sounds incredible, and congratulations on the studio and like, yeah, just getting everything going. It sounds incredible. So what I'll do is I'll pop all your details in the show notes, so anyone listening can come and find you and ask you questions. And yeah, if you're happy to answer questions, I do urge people to, like, new mums, parents, or people looking to have children, to send them over to your way. So then, you know, anything they want to know, I'm sure you'll be able to help with or guide them as to where they should go to find that help, for sure. Because yeah, all of
Yeah,
your
I
wealth of
have a Facebook group as well, which is quite fairly new. So that would be a good space for them to come along. So
yeah,
I intend for that to
absolutely.
be the space for every mummy to ask questions, just to share, have a cup of tea. So yeah, lots happening, lots planned. So yeah, I'm at a better stage with my youngest, not so dependent anymore. So yes, I've got a little bit more time to give to the business. So I'm hoping to watch the space. 2024 is going to be exciting for supporting mummies and babies.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it sounds incredible. Well, it was lovely to speak to you, Metasha. My kind of ending
Thank
thing that I like to do on the podcast is to, I kind of call it a soul to soul message. So it's a bit like whatever you would tell your younger self, or maybe a listener that you feel like they need to hear right now. What would be your kind of closing thing you'd like to say?
Well, life happens. So you just trust the journey. You may start off, like I said, I started off thinking I was going to be this high career woman, and I ended up being a mom of 7. So whatever your journey is, just embrace that journey, make the most of it. And yeah, we only live once. So make the most of what you've been given.
Yeah, absolutely. That. Thank you so much for joining me, Metasha. It was such a lovely conversation. And I know that when I'm ready to have children, you will be the person that I'll be coming to ask all of my questions, for sure.
Oh,
But yes,
perfect.
thank you so, so much. And I hope you have a
Yes.
lovely day, whatever you're doing.
Cool. Thank you for having me.